Formula Motor Racing card game is a game that I knew absolutely nothing about before I purchased it. But last week I was visiting the Game Empire game store in Los Angeles, just looking for some good games and possibly games that I hadn't heard of or I wouldn't easily find somewhere else. I was browsing the pre-owned section of the store and I saw this pre-owned game, Rainer Knizia, GMT. That's a good combination of elements right there. The theme racing. I've been playing more racing games in the last couple of weeks, I think, than in the previous part of my life, and it was like $10. So I was like, $10, yeah, whatever. I can take a chance on GMT and Knizia and racing theme for $10, and I'm glad that I took a chance because actually those are $10 that I spent well. What do we have here in the box? We have the rulebook, which is extremely short, just a couple of pages, and the last page is simply a log, which you can photocopy. You also have a little pad with log sheets to keep track of score, especially if you're playing a full championship instead of a single race. As for the game itself, it comes with a set of very cute plastic cars. The theme, as you may imagine, is Formula 1. You have these cars here. There are 2 per color, and you place them in a line at the beginning of the game. You determine randomly the color that goes first, and the color that goes first also goes last. Then you have second and second to last, third and third to last. I think you get the idea. All cars will always be in play, even if not all teams will actually be controlled by players. Another thing is that, as you may notice from here, there is no board. Nope, there's no board. It's a racing game with no racetrack. It is all abstracted simply by the line of cars that you see here. The game does not use a board because it simply is about the relative position of the cars to one another, which, well, makes sense. You have cards representing the crews, and you will simply assign one to each player, and the player puts it in front of him or herself, simply as a reminder for all players of who is controlling which team. Suppose that here we have these 3 teams that are racing. And then the main engine of the game is represented by this deck of cards, which you thoroughly shuffle together at the beginning of the game. The last element is a 12-sided die with sides indicating numbers from 1 to 12. You shuffle all of these cards, and then you assign a hand of 5 cards to each player, and it's extremely simple. The rules, I can teach them all to you in 10 seconds. That is, you have your hand of 5 cards. When it is your turn, you play one, you resolve the effect described on the card. After you play that, you get another card to refill your hand to 5, and that's it. That's the end of your turn. You keep playing like this, playing a card or drawing a card and going around the table. All players do that in their turn until the end of the deck. When the deck is exhausted, each player still takes 1 turn without refilling their hands, obviously. And at that point, you score points based on the placement of the cards controlled by the players within the line. The first, of course, is worth a lot more points, second a little less, and so on and so forth, for the first 6 positions. Other cards in the line do not score points. And not all cards may be there at the end of the game. Most likely not all cards will make it. Now, some of the cards are coded with a color indicating one of the teams in play. Remember, all teams are in play even if they're not actively played by the players, which means that when you're playing a card, you will affect a car on the table, which is of the corresponding color, whether the car and the team are actually controlled by another player or not. I don't care if somebody's controlling blue or not. If I play this card, I choose a blue car on the table and I execute the overtake maneuver. In this case, I choose a blue car and I advance a blue car by 2 positions within the line. However, the overtake card as the card indicates, affects 2 cars, the one that I'm playing the card on and the car right behind. So suppose that I'm playing this overtake card on this car here, the blue car moves by 2 positions, 1, 2, and so does the car right behind it, and then I adjust the line. As simple as that. Purple, a purple overtake by 4. I played here. Now purple wants to return the favor to blue. Blue just gave purple a pull thanks to the slipstream or the draft. Then we have an overtake of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Blue follows because blue was right behind. I adjust the line, and that's it. There are cards that create very different situations. This one I can play on any card on the board, and it simply pushes that card back by 2 positions. There's one, pit stop. I choose any car and I roll the die. 1 to 6, I move the car back by the number of spaces to represent the time that that car spent taking the pit stop. 7 to 12, nothing happens. The Tailender Turbo. Choose one of the last 3 cars still in the race and move it forward by 3 spaces. The car behind it does not move. No slipstream there. Charge, engine blows, choose any car and roll the die. 1 to 9, the car moves by 1 position. 10 to 12, it is out of the race. That's a very dangerous maneuver. And if you're playing against somebody else, maybe you give them an advantage, or maybe they'll go out. They'll simply be pushed out of the race. There are some cards of that type that will simply randomly, out of the blue, kick somebody out of the race. Somebody, not a player, but at least a car. Of course, if you manage to get both cars of a player out of the game, then the player is out of the game entirely. Is brutal? Well, yes, this is Formula 1. Brutal, unpredictable, unfair things may happen anytime, anywhere. I like that. I like that fact that there is that completely uncontrollable element being factored into the game. Spin out, roll the die, 1 reroll is allowed, the car in that position is out of the race. This is a death sentence for somebody in the game. In this case, you roll the die, and then the number will simply indicate the position of the car that is out of the race. 1, 2, 3, 4. Suppose that I just played this car and I am the purple player. That's not good. Luckily enough, a reroll is allowed, but the second number that is rolled is final. And I rolled 4 again. See, that wasn't all that great. You may want to reroll sometimes, not just to protect yourself, but maybe because you were targeting a specific player and you're hoping that the player gets one of their cars out of the game, but if you reroll and you were an original target, you may end up being the target after that. So many different effects, many beneficial to one or multiple cards, many negative cards that will create all sorts of terrible things. So cars will be removed from the race, will move around, will fight for position, and all sorts of things will happen. Not everybody will make it. And as I said, once the deck is exhausted and everybody has taken a final turn, you look at the final line of cars, you start assigning points from first position on, and at that point the player controlling the team that scored the most points is the winner of the game. So, a game that I picked up completely by chance, and I'm incredibly pleased that I did. Really, $10 well spent. It's a heck of a good game. It's great because you can play it with gamers as a really light game, with non-gamers as a normal game. This is the kind of complexity that non-gamers expect from games. And there's more than meets the eye. When I was playing it the first time, I thought, it's gonna be easy. I have a card that applies to me. It's gonna make me go fast. Ha 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 ha. And then I realized that there weren't many of those cards that would allow me to get a benefit directly from me playing a card that applied to one of my cards. There are many more cards that apply to other teams. Numerically, you only have one of the teams. So if you're a purple team, there are less cards that benefit purple team than there are overall in all the teams. So you really have to try to play parasitically for most of the game. In most cases, if you're getting advantages consistently, it is because you have exploited your position and you're making other teams work for you. Which is tricky if, of course, the other teams are the teams that belong to other players. So I want the card right in front of me to move by 4 so they can follow it and go close to the beginning of the line. But that card belongs to my opponent. So if I can find a combo there in which I give you an advantage and then as soon as you get there, you spin out of control, that's a good combo. But sometimes you have to build that turn after turn. And as you do that, things do change organically really fast. If you play with more than 3 players, sometimes when the game goes back to you, really you're facing a completely new situation that you had no way of predicting. So many changes have happened. And that makes the game a little more random based, or considerably more random based. With a small amount of players, say 3 players, I find that's really when the game works and creates a good balance between the randomness that happens and that should be there given the theme, and the options that you have and the ways in which you can manipulate that. Maybe part of the line will have been completely messed up by what the players did, messed up in terms of what you wanted that thing to be, that part of the line to be, but that part isn't affected, and then you can apply your strategy there. 3 players to me really is a good amount of players here, and with 3 players the game goes furiously fast because really it's like play, move, bam bam, next player, 2, bam bam, next player. So the game keeps moving. You do not have any sort of analysis paralysis problem because usually you have just 2 or 3 interesting options to evaluate. Sometimes you're stuck with 1, sometimes you have 0. Then of course it becomes 5 possible terrible options that you had to choose from. But usually you have some completely uninteresting options, 1, 2, or 3 that are good, and you're debating in your mind and you're trying to figure out a little bit ahead what the consequences may be. But really, this challenge of figuring out when it is the right time to use the very powerful cards that you have, the ones that benefit your cards directly, and the ways in which the kind of sort of situationally good cards may work for you, then presents a nice mix of hand management problems, issues, challenges, fun challenges with things that happen on the board, with fun thematic moments. This game is surprisingly thematic. When cars spin out of control or they have to leave for a pit stop, there is a surprising amount of theme that comes out. Surprising when you consider that you're just looking at these 12 silly cards that are not even on a board and you're simply playing cards. It is a card game that does feel like a motor racing game. Here the subtitle says the quickest playing auto racing game in existence. I haven't played all the other ones, so I cannot say that. But it's really quick playing, both in terms of the overall length of the race. In an evening, in less than 2 hours, you can play several races and have your little championship. And also it's quick play in terms of the rhythm and the pace of the game. That really is snappy and really is exciting. Things keep moving, no pun intended. And that is all good. And if you find that the game is too random, then yes, please, by all means, do play not just a single race, which you can do as a light filler, play a championship with a couple of races back to back, and that in that case overall the large number of plays that you have will tend to even things out. A very unlucky game should be balanced out by another one in which maybe things went better from the point of view of Lady Fortune, and when things are evened out randomly, then it is individual skill of the players that finally emerges. Formula Motor Racing, the card game. I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I'm surprised that this game doesn't get more visibility because it has so many good things to it. It is so easily playable. Here it says 8 years old and up. I think a much younger player could play this game. I think I could play this with my 4.5-year-old daughter, just helping her a little bit with some of the cards, not even with all of them. The color coded one with the +2 or 3 or 4, and the image of the 2 cards moving up. She doesn't even need any help with the text. That she just by reading the numbers and looking at the image, she could play those cards. Some of the cards she would need more help, but it is so simple, so intuitive that a child can play it. I played it with adults only, incidentally, not with children, and everybody had such a good time. Easy to teach, fun to play. It can be as short or as long as you want it to be. If you can play it as a single race or as one of the main courses in a game night. Really nice game. Rainer Knizia Formula Motor Racing car game. What a pleasant surprise. What a fun game. One that I definitely look forward to playing more in the future.